I'm Pat Rooney. I'm from the State Highway Administration's Office of CHART. It's the Coordinated Highways Action Response Team, the nice pretty yellow trucks you see out there helping people with flats and giving them gas and water and all that kind of stuff. Little background, I am retired from Baltimore County Police. Did 23 years with Baltimore County. Most of that time was in traffic-related stuff. I'm an accident reconstructionist. I had commercial vehicle inspections, cargo tanks, hazardous materials, just about anything you could imagine being involved with traffic, I've had. Prior to going with CHART back in May, I spent the last 3 years as an instructor up at the Maryland Police Training Commission's Academy right up the road here in Sykesville. I was the primary traffic instructor there also. And the good thing about that was Tim was kind of new. It's only the actual Tim that we will be giving you the introduction to here today has actually only been around for about 2 years. So it's a relatively new program. It's very energetic right now. It's very dynamic. And we started over at the Police Academy. It was the first police academy in the state to actually put this traffic incident management responder training into the core curriculum of the academy, of its entry-level academy. We've also been teaching it now, for these last 2 years, to individual agencies and putting on group, what we like referring to as multidiscipline classes all over the state. And since going with CHART back in May, they kind of hung the big carrot in front of me and forced me to leave law enforcement side, to, the total law enforcement side. But we've been going statewide now with it under CHART. This is not a CHART program. This is the Federal Highway Administration program. CHART is just kind of the catalyst to get it going, to get it out to everybody. Okay, we're kind of the clearinghouse for all of the various agencies in the state of Maryland to get the information to the Federal Highway Administration, so that if you teach a class, okay, if you have instructors in your agencies, you do the teaching in-house, just get me the information on the numbers and which disciplines were represented, and I'll make sure that it gets put into the data system over with Federal Highway Administration. My partner today is Lieutenant Mike Tagliafieri, who is the State Highway Administration MSP Liaison Officer. Mike?
Thank you, Pat. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us here. Like Pat said, I'm a lieutenant with the State Police. I've been with the State Police for the past 16 years. I've kind of developed into a traffic incident management guru. I'm kind of the catalyst between the State Highway Administration and law enforcement. I kind of bridge the gap between the two agencies, help coordinate all activities, whether it's traffic incident management, major incidents, construction details, work zone programs. I try and relay information back and forth. We work so closely together on a daily basis with traffic incidents. We staff the Traffic Operations Center down in Hanover with the State Highway Administration personnel. I've been through the training program, trained by Federal Highway. I also had the honor to go to the Fire Staff and Command course last year, which I'm proud to be a graduate of. I was a volunteer fireman when I was about 18, so I do have a little bit of background there. And I can promise you, I have never arrested a fireman for not moving a truck. And I apologize ahead of time for any of you that may have been placed in a precarious situation being ordered to move a fire truck. And that's kind of why we're here today, to kind of bridge the gap between fire, police, EMS, the towing industry, and bring everyone here together in a training environment as opposed to out on the scene where tensions are high, we're all working in our own disciplines, we're all concerned about our own policies and procedures, and sometimes things get heated. We want to work those out here, find out what your policies are, what your procedures are. You may not be able to move your fire truck based on your policy and procedure, but you may be able to bring that back to your command staff and say, hey, look, law enforcement and state highway, they're asking us to do this at this scene. Can we look at these policies? Can we look at maybe changing the way we've done things in the past? And that's why we're here today, and I'm just very pleased that we were invited.
And over the years, I've kind of, I worked real close with the fire departments. I was a volunteer fireman for about 10 years. I was an EMT for 30 years. I was actually an EMT longer than I was a cop. But we had, so I've always kind of understood where this kind of training is coming from. Because I used to say the same kind of thing, fire department would be at the scene, you have the road blocked, and you say, hey, can we open up a lane? And say, no. Why? Because we can. And it was just like that. I'd hear that from all over the place. It was like it was being taught that the standard answer is because we can. Well, the thing is, nobody was really thinking about the real problem with this is the secondary collisions. Okay, secondary collisions are responsible for 20% of your injuries and your fatalities, not to mention 20% of the accidents overall. It's going to be a secondary collision that's going to injure and kill you or some of your personnel out at a traffic incident. Okay, you're going to be at the initial incident. You're going to be handling the call that you got. You're going to be there, and somebody's going to strike somebody at that scene. That's going to be a secondary collision. That's why the numbers, that's why it's 20%. A lot of people think 20%, that's a lot of, well, it is. Okay, that's on through highways, through roads. Doesn't necessarily mean interstate highways. It doesn't mean divided highways. It doesn't mean your multi-lane roads. It could be a 2-lane country road. Okay, but 20% is because it's a secondary collision, not the primary. This is an accident up in front of the fire engine that had already just been cleared. The fire engine, you see all the firefighters getting on the engine just prior to that impact. You see the one fireman jump over the wall. You'll see it in slow motion. It's a wet road, it's not icy. 80,000 pounds of tractor trailer coming up there, and the driver decides to hit his brakes funny. Broke that 15-degree barrier that it becomes unrecoverable, and the truck is going to jackknife and slams into the fire engine. Luckily, none of the fire personnel were seriously injured. Just about everybody, except for the guy that jumped across the wall, ended up injured, but the truck driver was killed. He was killed instantly. Okay? As the truck jackknifed, and you see when it hits, it just crushed the cab, the driver's side of the cab. So, it's just like that. That's a secondary collision. What we're going to be going over today for all of you, as it says up here, increase awareness of the National Traffic Incident Management Responder Program. Want to outline the business case, and I'm not a big, as far as when we talk about the business case, we're going to talk about money, and we're only going to touch on that for a second. Because everybody thinks that when we get out there as far as state highways or the county roads, and they say, hey, open these roads, and that it all deals with commerce. It does deal with commerce, but I'm here to tell you about the people that are responding and the people that are handling the incident. I want that to be safe. I want them to be on the safe side. I don't care what UPS and FedEx and all of them are really worried about at that time. Sure, later, eventually, let's get everybody through there and stop people being stuck in the backup. We're going to go over what training is available. Going to identify the course highlights, what the key points are for the incident management training. And we're going to offer some options for you as far as how you can get that training for your people. About 1960, this was not the first accident that I handled, even though some people would think it is. But you see the way that up in the median strip, that's where the scene is. You see the car overturned in the median. And all the people, what we now refer to as EMS, okay, but you see the ambulance crew there. And of course, back then they had the same problems with their ambulances. You see the hood up, so apparently it's overheating or something. But you see the police cars all over the place. You see police cars all lined up here and over on this side and some in the middle. And there's really no management of the scene. And that's where we started, doing that kind of stuff. Sadly, we still see this. Sadly, you can roll up on a scene and you will see this, confusion. Okay, it's kind of a state of organized confusion. that's where the traffic incident management program is trying to get, is to get everybody from the police, fire, rescue, EMS, tow trucks, hazardous material response teams, utilities. We want everybody to understand their job, their place in the traffic incident management scheme of things, as well as knowing what everybody else is supposed to be doing, so that everybody can do their own thing. Optimizing the use of our resources. It's a key point. We've had to rearrange that. Used to be, state highways folks would get out there and all they did was help motorists. Used to see them all across the country, different states having different variations of it, but it was always motorist assistance was the key thing. In Maryland, it's slightly different in the areas that CHART operates in, because CHART, the key focus of all of the CHART drivers is traffic management. When they if they're helping a motorist change a tire and an incident occurs somewhere down the road, they're probably going to get somebody else to come help change that tire while they respond to go take care of the traffic problems. Once again, trying to cut down on the number of secondary collisions that we have.
Contrary to popular belief, as opposed to what you may see out there on the roadways, construction is down. We cannot build any more roadways. We may be increasing lanes in 95. You may see small projects here and there, but we're running out of room. There's really nowhere to put more lanes. There's really nowhere to put more roadways. So what we have to do is we have to manage what we have better. And a couple years ago, I went to the Operations Academy, which is put on by the University of Maryland. Great eye-opener. And it basically explains how to manage what you have, how to do things differently, because we cannot put more vehicles on our roadway. We have to manage them better. We have to get the incidents cleared sooner, and we have to deal with congestion. We have to deal with major events, because basically we cannot build more roadways, more lanes. If you see here, injury crashes. Each injury crash, you may have 2 law enforcement officers out there at the scene, 4 fire and EMS, 4 fire rescue, 2 EMS, 1 towing recovery. That could be up to 9 responders on any traffic incident. That's your typical incident. Those are your personnel out on the scene. Those are people that are out there putting their lives in jeopardy for could be a initial property damage crash that turns into an injury crash. But if you take a look, that's potentially 27 responders rolling out to a new crash every minute, 24/7, 365. This particular incident that you see here is state highway worker Eddie Gilliard was struck and killed on the Baltimore Beltway. But you just see how many responders are out there for a major incident like that. You have Baltimore County Police, you have state police, you have medical examiner, you have a crash team personnel as well. All those responders, state highway personnel as well, they're at risk for injury due to secondary crashes, secondary collisions, and of course the initial crash which killed Eddie.
Police officers are 18 times more likely to be killed in a secondary collision, in one of the, not a drive-by, but, just being hit by a vehicle that is passing through a traffic incident. 18 times more likely than to be shot. Okay? 1985, I was struck by a truck. Okay? And I'll tell you, I don't want anybody to ever have to go through that. I was struck. I was almost killed. The one thing I want you to take away from this training for your own personal safety and to kind of train your personnel, never turn your back on traffic. Never turn your back on that traffic. If you are going from the apparatus back to the incident itself, do it in such a way that you're watching the oncoming traffic, that traffic that's upstream from you. Because it's going to be that split second that you turn your back on it that something's going to happen. What saved my life back in 1985 was that I was watching the traffic coming at me. I was watching the vehicle that was going to hit me. It gave me enough time that I was able to jump up, get myself up off the ground, that he clipped me in midair instead of pinning me against the police car. Okay, and that's when 7 months later, when I got back in a police car again, I don't think the police car made it out of the shop before I did. But it was just one of the, that I learned it at that time, and one of the key points in the traffic incident management program is that you never turn your back on traffic.
Like Pat said, 1998, November 3rd, I was struck on the Baltimore Beltway. I was in my vehicle, had just completed a traffic stop. Traffic was building up behind me. I looked in my driver's side mirror and I saw a dump truck slowing down, couldn't stop, pulled over onto the right shoulder where I was, and basically drove up over top of my vehicle, overturned it, and spilled his load of gravel. So it's out there. It happens to you. It's my biggest fear. It's my biggest fear, being struck and killed on the roadside, whether it's in my vehicle, out on a traffic scene. I'm not a fireman. I'm not running into burning buildings, but from my perspective, I fear for the life of your technicians and your operators out there, that someone's going to get hit and killed out there on the roadside. People do not pay attention. They're drunk, they're distracted, they're texting, they're worrying about the kids in the back seat, they're running late, they're doing this. There's so many things that's going on. Social media, checking Facebook, doing this. That's my biggest fear out on the roadside. I'm not worried about being shot. Well, of course I'm being worried about being shot, but my biggest fear is being struck and killed out on a traffic incident scene or driving back and forth to a scene. 6 to 8 EMS and fire rescue personnel are killed every year. As an average, every year, we're going to lose 6 to 8 because of being struck at an incident. The 10 to 12 law enforcement officers are killed every year because of that. They're turning their back on traffic a lot of times. And then, you want to know why tow trucks were included in the move-over law. 50 to 60, this is a little low-balled. The average for tow truck operators killed is actually up closer to 60 a year are killed just because they're at the scene, loading a vehicle up onto the tow truck, tying it down, anything like that, and they end up getting struck and killed because of people just not doing what they're supposed to. That's why tow trucks are included in the move-over law starting October 1st. And then highway workers, whether it's state highways, county roads, whoever are out there working on the road, private contractors, paving roads. That's why Maryland went and had the law change where they can double the fines in construction zones, okay, because of the number of highway workers killed every year. Yes, sir?
Are these Maryland Maryland numbers or federal numbers?
No, that's the average nationwide.
Average nationwide.
Average nationwide. Here's the slide I was telling you about at the beginning about cost. You don't think about it, but picture yourself sitting in a traffic backup going on that well-deserved vacation down to Ocean City, and you're sitting in the traffic backup on Route 50 for a couple of hours because of a wreck up ahead. All right, how much is your time worth? How much is the time of you, your spouse, your kids, having all that time, that good quality time with the family and friends? How much is that worth to you compared to what you're getting paid when you're on the scene? And think about finally when the traffic starts moving up past the scene and you're driving along and you see off on the side, the police officer just standing there leaning against the car writing down information about the accident. Or the firefighters just standing there leaning on the brooms or just waiting to clean the scene up. But you see that inactivity that, it's like they're standing around doing nothing. Well, all of us know what they're doing. Everybody knows they're just standing there waiting for somebody else to finish what they have to at the scene. But the public doesn't understand that when they drive past. And that's why there's this big move about making sure that you do something. That, the tow trucks, when they get there, call them there right away so that they can take a look and see what they have to do, and they can start getting ready to get those vehicles out of the road. Okay, the police officers, when they get there, they know what measurements and photographs and all that. Everybody should be doing things simultaneously. You don't have to get there and say, well, the fire department's done. Okay, the police, you come in and you do it. You do your thing. And then you wait for them to finish. And then, okay, the cleanup crew, you can go in there and now you can clean it. A lot of those things can be done concurrently. And that's why it's, that's why it's important to get this kind of training out to everybody so that they start thinking like that. Back when I first went on the department back in 1978, we ended up, it was common that you get to an accident that you were going to reconstruct and you just shut the road down. And say, okay, I'll handle it. Go ahead, shut the road down. And we'd leave it shut for hours. We didn't realize that we were causing secondary collisions. All of a sudden, we'd hear an accident a couple blocks down the road, and we'd just figure, somebody ran into something. We didn't realize that we were actually causing it. okay, because we had the road closed a lot longer than it should have, and we weren't managing the scene properly. And actually, back when I retired in 2001, things were still being done pretty much that way, and unfortunately, it's still being done. Where you get some people that want to reconstruct an accident, or they just want to shut the road down for whatever reason why they do what they have to. Like this morning, everybody heard about that accident out there on 95, southbound just north of Washington, okay, that had traffic backed up all the way back up to Baltimore. Okay? And I'll guarantee you, now they just finished opening the road just a short time ago. They pulled the tractor trailer off the road. They're waiting for rush hour to be done before they flip it back up and tow it out. But I'll guarantee you that traffic is going to be messed up until after this afternoon's rush hour because of the constraints on that traffic. Just like what the lieutenant was saying, okay? We've run out of asphalt. We've got more sheet metal than asphalt out there on the roads. And it's just no place that we can put it. We have to manage it better. The 4-hour course is real important. That's the best way of getting it out. There's a 10-hour version, but how many agencies have 10 hours to spend on people? In the academies, sure. Okay. Next week, I'm going to be back up Sykesville helping the Police Training Commission with their the class that they have in. Going to have the 4-hour class the one day. The next day, the entire day, all 8 hours is devoted to doing tabletop scenarios and running over scenarios and getting into actual traffic direction measures. Okay, so that's the kind of stuff where you can worry about the 10 hours. But at least getting the 4 hours worth of training out to everybody is really important. The Strategic Highway Research Program, which was the Federal Highway Administration's course, or the program that this course came out of, it took about 5 years to develop. Okay, it was not the only thing that they concentrated on, and this was the second such program that they had done. And they put together things to take care of making highways safer, fixing the dilapidated highways that we have out there, okay, setting up certain policies and procedures on getting that done, and also reducing congestion, which, good luck. We live in one of the busiest highway areas in the country. Okay, the Baltimore-Washington corridor is notorious for its highways, okay, and the congestion. And we all know how to deal with it. Well, pretty much.
So if we take a look at the incident management training program, it's a train the trainer program that Federal Highway put on. Federal Highway send instructors, taught roughly 90 instructors in Maryland to go out and train this program. So we have roughly 90 certified instructors, probably 20 instructors that are currently active going out and teaching in the field. It's a multidisciplinary training program. It's police, fire, EMS, towing,
Highways.
Yep, State Highway Administration personnel, DOT personnel, county officials as well. And it develops the emergency responders who work together in an accident scene. It improves safety to responders and travelers, and it was developed by responders for responders. So it's not a state highway program, like Pat said. It's not a CHART program. It's not a state police program. It's not a fire department program. It's anyone's program. It's developed for you to take the training, go out there into your field and train your personnel. And it's a multidisciplinary training program. We like to have many different disciplines at the training. It sparks the conversation. It develops bonds. It develops new relationships. Rather than dealing with an incident out at the scene, you can deal with it in a training environment, discuss policies and procedures, and work towards establishing better relationships.
Number one, you're going to keep seeing throughout the entire program, and if you go take the 4-hour course, you keep hearing responder safety, responder safety. That is what we're worried about more than anything else. We want the responders to be safe. By preventing secondary collisions, that also means preventing them from being involved in a secondary collision. So we're kind of accomplishing both things by managing the scenes properly. Safe, quick clearance, but that does not mean that you jeopardize patient care. It doesn't mean that you speed up the process and you get a little slipshod with your patient care because of it. It doesn't mean that you destroy evidence that's left at the scene just in order to clear it faster. Okay, but it just means that what you have to deal with, you take care of it as quick and as responsibly as possible. Communications, everybody wonders where the Maryland First system and why there's been such a big push on the Maryland First communication system. Okay, yeah, it originated back in 2001 or 2002, right after the attacks of 9/11. But there's been the big push to get it all done now, and a lot of it came out of this Sharp 2 program.
If each agency works on safe, quick clearance within their agency, and they work together with other agencies, all the other residual effects will take place. Congestion will decrease, air quality will improve, commerce will improve, gas prices will go down. But if we concentrate and focus on responder safety and safe, quick clearance, everything else that the Federal Highway Program is looking to develop, those programs will also follow along.
We covered 9 main topics in each one of the 4-hour classes. Okay? Everything just from your introduction and learning the different terminology and making sure everybody starts talking the same language, and when you're discussing response to the scene. It also wants to help people, the civilians, that when they call 911, give them a little bit of a background on what they're talking about, when, directions. One of the things that we want to try to avoid is people see an incident and they get on the phone with 911 and 911 operators asks them, well, what direction is it? And that they have to pick up their GPS to look at it, okay? We don't want that to happen, but we want people to understand and clarify, lane terminology and all that, and that all gets covered in the 4-hour program. And then, if time permits in certain circumstances, you can do tabletop exercises, you add them in. They're kind of like a little additional thing. And then outside exercises. If it's nice and 75 degrees in October and all that, we go outside as long as it's not raining and the wind doesn't blow you away. This is what the plan was. Maryland has already accomplished this. Maryland is a little bit ahead when it comes down to the training portion of this. It's just getting it out to the individual agencies. Okay, and that's kind of what we want you to take back out of this, and go back to your agencies with. The training is here. You don't have to wait 2 years down the road for it to happen. Okay, we're actively doing it now. 50% of my time is being spent doing the training and scheduling it and getting everything done as far as, who is having the training and, what part of the state is getting it. And also, I'm the liaison to the Federal Highway Administration regarding the TIM training. If you conduct the training, if your agency conducts the training, just get me the numbers of who it is, what discipline they're from, and I'll make sure that it gets to the Federal Highway Administration so that they can keep track of how many people in the state of Maryland have it. The sponsoring agencies don't really have to do much. It doesn't cost anything. We provide the instructors, we provide the material, we provide everything you need except for the location and the personnel. You set us up with the location and the personnel, and we'll make it happen. Same thing, as this says, it's who has the responsibility? Well, your agency does. You have to make sure that the people get the training. And it's, we work with you as a partner to make sure that you're able to accomplish your goals as well. This is how many states have it. Okay. Why South Dakota isn't on board with it yet, nobody can really answer that. I guess, maybe, yeah. All 10 of their people know what to do, right? But it's, and Hawaii is actually on board, even though this shows that they're not. They had 2 instructors up at Emmitsburg back in June. So, they're on board. What I have heard is that they're being rather picky about who gets it. They're only giving it out to fire department and police, okay, which they're going to learn. Okay, so, of course, in Hawaii, maybe they just take vehicles involved in accidents and dump them in a volcano and let them melt. But, you just have to, with those people, involved in that, in certain isolated places. Puerto Rico is totally on board with this program. Chief?
So this is actually this is train the trainer. These are people that do the training?
This
or-
is where they have had to train the trainers and where they're actively performing the training.
Okay, is there any statistics on, I guess, wow, there you go. Never mind.
How many people have been trained overall? This is how many people have been trained, not including the trainers. Okay? As you can see, Maryland has really come up. Like, tooting my own horn here, especially since May. As far as Maryland's numbers. But, you take a look at this map and how many people have been trained in the Traffic Incident Management Responder Program. New York, as big as New York is, only 611 people. Pennsylvania has, what did he say yesterday, third or fourth largest state police agency in the country. And yet, they only have 392 people trained. Okay, people have to get on board with this. Okay, it's just, it's too important. Texas, I can't believe Texas. We're beating Texas. So I don't know what people are waiting for. I know what a lot of people are waiting for. A lot of people are waiting for what Ohio has done. They've mandated it. Okay, you want to know why 10,000 people in Ohio are trained? It's because every police academy and every fire academy has to have this as part of their curriculum. We want to avoid that in Maryland. We would rather everybody just do it voluntarily and work it into the curriculum in the different academies, whether it's fire department, police. We're working with the Towing Association that is part of their national certification that they end up requiring this. So, we're going to get it out there one way or the other. I'd rather it not be mandated. I'd rather, not come up to the MIFRE or the Police Training Commission to say, you have to include this now. It was hard when we first came up with and said we want 4 hours of training in all the academies for this. It was really hard because everybody, you go to an academy director and they say, but where am I going to get those 4 hours? We're already cramped. You can replace some of the old stuff with this. Okay, take a look at some of the old antiquated type traffic management measures in place and replace it with this. It's not like having to add 4 hours of training. Sir?
Question. Ohio. So the state of Ohio mandated it. Two-part question. Did they mandate it because they had a lot of deaths as a result of accidents on highways, and if they did it work? Has there been a reduction?
I don't know for sure about whether there's been a reduction, but it was kind of a voluntary mandate. They wanted to be the leader in this program. That's why in the program you'll see a lot of videos that came from Ohio and stuff. They wanted this to work. So that's why they ended up jumping on board and coming up with the requirements on it so fast. Got to remember, this part of the program's only been around for about 2 years. So for that to happen, somebody had to jump up. You know darn well that the legislature didn't work that fast, right?
These are basic ground level principles for road personnel. These aren't these aren't very complex techniques. It's very basic information that most of us know, but it's put together in a uniform package to teach all disciplines. So each discipline knows what the other agencies are responsible for doing. So everyone knows their role. It's very basic information. Like Pat said, academies, police academies, fire academies, they can kind of replace some of the old training. I know with my agency, I took a look at what we were teaching. We were teaching very basic traffic direction. This is how you light a flare. This is how you set up a cone pattern. We can definitely replace the training that we have with this new improved training.
Yeah, it was a real key to Mike when he went and reviewed it, and he saw how to hot shot a Model T. He said, this stuff is antiquated. You take the objectives and what we hope the outcomes to be. It's just to make sure that things are done safely. Okay, quick but safe. Safe is always going. That's all you keep hearing throughout the whole program is how it's supposed to be done safely. This, if you just take a second to read that, Indiana State Police major that was involved with this from the start, and he put that first sentence puts it in a nutshell. The whole idea is to get responders to play in the sandbox together again. Okay, no more letting individual department regulations dictate. Yesterday, you heard Gordon talking about, this idea of, everybody marching to the beat of their own drummer, so to speak. Everybody having their own regulations and all that. We found out what all of that does when you start talking about traffic incident management. Everybody wants to have their own way of doing it. Well, that's old. That's not the way it should be now. We all have to work together to do this. Okay, it's a multidiscipline problem. It has to be handled multidiscipline-wise. Nope, son of a gun. Think I've seen this a few times?
Yep.
Okay? I mean, you take a look at this equipment that gets run into. Okay, that's why we have move-over laws. That's why the tow trucks now have to have move-over laws. I mean, if you don't see a fire engine with all the conspicuity striping that now is required under the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices, okay, even our trucks fall under it because those trucks are emergency vehicles. That truck was moving when it got run into. It was coming up on the scene, had the emergency lights and all that, and somebody still managed to pick it out of the crowd and run into it. Okay, so one of the things we cover are the D drivers. One of the things that we have a segment in there for the 4-hour training program. So we all know about drunks, drug drivers, drowsy drivers, distracted drivers, and the last one is the dumb driver. And I think that's the one that's most responsible for just about all the collisions out there, even the drunk. It's not just that they're just drunk, it's because they're dumb too. Safe vehicle positioning is real important and is a key element in the program. Okay, we want vehicles to be parked blocking. Sure, an 80,000-pound tractor trailer running into the side of a 60,000-pound fire engine, it's going to move that fire engine. Okay? But that 3,000-pound Toyota, okay, is not going to move it. And that's what you want. You want to block what the largest chances of a vehicle when it's going to run into your scene. The old way, and you still see a lot of fire departments coming up and parking it the opposite way, nosing in. It's one of the worst things you can do. You're creating a funnel. Okay, the cars coming down behind it end up, hitting the side of that fire engine. Just because a fire engine is there and weighs 50 to 60,000 pounds does not mean that the car's going to hit it and stop. The car's going to funnel. The car's going to deflect off of it, go between the fire engine and the guardrail, and end up coming into your scene, coming into where all of your personnel are working. So it's kind of, putting it like this, letting them deflect off of it and go back out into traffic, as long as they're not hurting the people at the scene, that should be the primary. Yes, sir.
I think that's a good point, and I think the reason, I know speaking for myself, my experience as a company officer, the reason we may do that on a highway is to protect the pump operator. If we have lines pulled off, then that kind of gives the pump operator some extra protection. So what we need to do further is we need to think about that, and we need to put yet another buffer unit behind that in this fashion to
That's
protect
correct.
them as well. So
And
kind of a twofold thing that we need
Yes.
to kind of change our mindset on.
yes.
Safe vehicle positioning. This generates the most conversation during the classes. Whether it's the fire department or the police department, we talk about lane plus one. We'll get into that in a little bit, but yeah, just like you said, certain agencies have specific policies and procedures that they need to follow. And in the classes, we may not be able to fix those issues. But those are things that you can bring back to your department and say, hey, look, state police and federal highway, we went to this training program. They're training us. They would like us to park facing out. Our policy says we should face in. What do you think we should do? Should we revisit this? Should we look at this?
And see, like on this picture, there's an Anne Arundel County engine pulled up, angled out. It's a single vehicle accident. Car went head on into the wall. Okay, it was significant damage actually sticking out partway into this lane. The engine was the first one to get there. They stayed back away from the scene to give that buffer in between the engine and where the scene is. And also, if you take a close look, you'll see the top of the medic unit. After we arrived, one of our trucks got there, put up the arrow board, started setting up the taper with the cones. The second truck pulled up, deployed the sign, the advance warning sign, and then set up their arrow board. And it also, the display comes up and flashes the arrow and then says merge right. Okay, put up a few more cones. The medic unit arrived, pulled up around in front of our truck, and on the other side of that engine. Totally protected at that point. There's enough buffer around there that you could probably stop a Boeing from getting into the scene. But that's the kind. This is textbook. That's the way they, that we would like all scenes to be done, whether it's on the left side or the right side of the road. Be able to get enough vehicles out there. One thing that you see, and yet was mentioned yesterday about getting old dump trucks, painting them red, put red lights on them, throw 1,000 cones in the back of them, and use them as the blocking vehicle. It's being done in Pennsylvania. A lot of the volunteer companies up in Pennsylvania are getting the old PennDOT dump trucks, and that's exactly what they're doing with them. And I mean, it's a great idea, So, and that's why I said, the primary focus of CHART is traffic management, not motorist assistance. Textbook picture. This was not staged. Okay, everybody's using this. Everybody involved in this program is using this picture because it was such a good picture. Whoever took it just ended up getting it and got the only. Tell anybody, raise your hand. Just what's the one thing wrong about that picture? Huh? No, well, actually, there's some cones behind it also, but where's the other cones? They stop right here. These people are going to see that lane open and cut over here way too soon. They should have had more cones in it, but that shows a good positioning for the fire engine on the scene. The key is to take only the number of lanes that you need to for as long as you need them. Okay, if you need an additional lane because you're going to be taking somebody out of the vehicle in a backboard and putting them on the litter and you need that extra 10-foot lane, do it. But only take it for as long as you need to do that. Okay, make sure that you open up the lane as soon as you're able to do that safely. Okay, because the key point is they open the lanes. If you need to take an additional lane, take that additional lane. Take the whole lane. Don't take 6 foot of a 10-foot lane because somebody with an 8-foot wide car is going to try to fit that in that 4-foot space that you're leaving. So if you need to shut a lane, even if you only need 2 feet of that lane, shut the whole lane down. Just move the vehicle, move the cones, do whatever you have to take that lane. But only take it until you're done doing what you needed it for.
And be aware that since we've been rolling out this training, everyone's being trained lane plus one. So when you have responders, police, and DOT and CHART folks coming up to you saying, hey, I've been trained lane plus one. All right, they know this, so they may come up to you and they say, hey, it's supposed to be lane plus one. If you can justify to them, hey, look, yes, we have the additional lane because we're getting ready to take the patient out of the vehicle. We need the extra room for the backboard. By all means, take what you need. Just don't be surprised when someone says, hey, I thought I was trained this way. Can you explain that to me? Why are you doing it? Certainly have no problem with you taking more than what's necessary for a time that it takes you to remove a patient or to do some other type of activity. You guys are the experts out there. It's your scene. You need to do what you need to do to get the patients out, extricate, things like that.
A conversation I had with one of the counties, I don't want to say which county it is, but just south of here, that handles the west side of 495. I took a photograph from I just took my cell phone, took a picture of a scene that one of their engines had created one morning rush hour. Had a property damage. They didn't know it was property damage. It came in as an advise. 2 vehicles, right-hand shoulder. Both vehicles had pulled off on the right-hand shoulder by themselves. 2 of the county police units was out. They were both off on the shoulder. The medic unit got there, pulled up in front of the scene, off on the shoulder. The engine pulls up and took 3 lanes, 3 of 4 lanes. Just totally blocked it off. Our truck got there, said, do you need all 3 lanes? So they backed the engine up, took 2 lanes. Still continued to block 2 lanes. Okay, it's property damage only. Nobody went to the hospital. They actually exchanged information at the scene and took off. Half a mile behind that engine, they created 3 people went to the hospital from a crash, a secondary crash, resulting in trying to merge over into into that one lane that they were creating. Okay, What was the purpose? Okay, and that's the kind of thing we want people to understand and think about when you get there. It's really neat that if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you block 3 or 4 lanes, because the traffic is still able to get by in that one lane without everybody checking up and running into each other. But Capitol Beltway, 9 o'clock in the morning, during rush hour, of course, when isn't the Capitol Beltway is the only road in the world that has a backup 24/7. But they, here, they pull up, and for what purpose? Property damage accident. Nobody's being transported. Nobody's being taken out of vehicles. So think about that before you start just pulling up and having a. The bad thing is to have a policy that says when you arrive at a location, you're going to block the lanes. Some agencies have that as a policy. Block the lanes until we find out what we have. Now, you should be talking to that medic unit and have the medic unit saying, hey, we're gonna need a lane, or we're gonna need 2 lanes. This is what, textbook again, this is what should happen with an incident like this. Now, granted, if that's a tractor trailer, it's gonna be taking up a whole lot more than just that shoulder in lane 2. Right? But we want to see an advance warning area. We want people to know what that advance warning area is, and that's to have one of those pretty pink signs set up back before the people get up to where they have to start slowing down and moving over. Okay, whether that's a half a mile, whatever it takes to have that sign set up to give people some kind of advanced warning. Because from the next picture, it's going to scare you. The transition area is where the taper is, what we usually refer to as the taper, where the cones are set up in such a way that it moves people over. You might have a signboard. You might have a state highway truck there, doing that for you. The activity area, which actually gets broken down, has 2 other parts in there that are buffers. The buffer space, you don't want any activity here because, just like was brought up about the pump panel, you don't want people, you want to have enough space there that if somebody wants to come up here and they end up hitting because one person doesn't want to be courteous and let them over into their lane, if they hit or if the other one gets forced over, gets stuffed over into that lane, that they'll end up here, not over against the engine or against, where your people are going to be working. Up front is what we call the no buffer. I mean, there's not a buffer there. Okay, somebody come up and around the corner and they figure, oh, I'm past the engine, I'm coming over, and they go to take that lane back again, and your people are standing there. That's why it upsets me when I see fire engine and fire truck drivers go to jump out of the cab, and they get out and they walk around this way. Okay, they should always get out and walk around this way, because you cross this, that's no man's land. You're actually going to get hit, and that's what's going to create an incident. Medic unit should be up front. Think about it, if anybody that's worked a medic unit. The back doors, okay? It's a whole lot easier loading patients in and out the back door with it being right there than to be back here and have to bring people up out too close to traffic on a litter, walk all the way around. I'm lazy. I don't want to have to drag that litter any further than I absolutely have to. So you take them out of the car here, put them in the back, and then they have a free way of getting out from that scene. They just pull forward and go out. Tow truck, same thing. They can just back up to the scene, hook up to them, and you don't have to interfere with the flow of traffic that you've created. The benefits of adopting it, this is the picture that I said would scare you. Single vehicle accident off the road. Car ran down into the ditch up against, down the bottom here is one of those cable barriers. Everything was off the road. This is up on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, just a little bit northwest of here. Medic units off on the shoulder. They're working, you're getting the person out of the vehicle, putting them into the medic unit. One of the Turnpike Authority dump trucks was sitting there trying to give some kind of advance warning. They didn't give enough advanced warning because 80,000 pounds of tractor trailer came around the curve behind them, wet road, he jackknifed, flipped it over, and skidded into the scene, killing a fireman and sending 9 others to the hospital. Okay? Folks, this is what we need to avoid. This is why we need to get proper traffic management policies and practices out there, okay, to avoid things like this from happening.
Yep. In the class, the 4-hour class, we go over case studies of different police officers, firemen, EMS, towing that were struck and killed. This is Tony Jones. Tony was in my academy class, and Tony was out on Route 50 in Bowie, Maryland. Tony was removing a piece of tire tread from the roadway during a traffic crash. In the middle of the night, he had stepped out into traffic and was struck and killed by a drunk driver. This is a towing and recovery professional that was killed, James Schreiber. James was killed after hooking up to a septic tanker truck out on 100, hit and killed by a driver of a Nissan. They never found the driver. Eddie Gilliard was killed 2013 out on the Beltway. It was one of the original pictures that was up there. Eddie and his crew member were replacing a signpost out on the roadway, struck and killed by a distracted driver. The backstory of Eddie's case was female had just gone through a car wash, ripped off her driver's side mirror. She was working on fixing the mirror while she was driving, veered across all 3 lanes, and struck and killed Eddie instantly. You probably all have heard the story of Trooper Jackie Klein backing up a trooper on a traffic scene in the middle of the night, struck and severely injured by a passing motorist. Jackie survived, but she has not returned to full duty. So there's many stories out there. I'm sure each department, maybe even you have been out there to see where you've been struck and injured. And what we're trying to do is just bring awareness to it, stop these unnecessary injuries with your departments.
We keep track of scenes and incidents. We know this one just happened right before Christmas last year. We keep track of how long it takes, and that's why we come up with the statistics. We're able to do that. University of Maryland helps out to keep all the statistics for us, and we can ask for just about anything to find out how long it takes for scenes to be cleared, which lanes are affected, who all responded to the scene. Minor incidents, less than 30 minutes, a traffic stop can be a minor traffic incident. If it affects traffic now, especially with the move-over law, that's exactly what's going to happen. Intermediate at 30 minutes to 2 hours, that's where the majority of your incidents occur. That's the time frame. Most of them get cleared within 2. And the major incidents are more than 2 hours. Secondaries. You're going to hear us say that for 4 hours, talking about secondary collisions. 2 tractor trailers coming up on an accident scene, your initial scene, not slowing down soon enough, they're coming up on the traffic backup, and they go to hit their brakes, run into each other, and 3 other vehicles, killing 2 people. 20% of the crashes on your major roadways, on your through roads, not just interstates, not just state roads, not the divided highways, but the major thoroughfares. 20% are secondary collisions. 20% of the accidents, the injuries, the fatals. Okay, that's what we have to reduce. Capacity roadways. Just remember, it is not. If you take 1 lane of a 4-lane highway, it's not just 25% of the traffic that you're affecting. When the road is at capacity, things like rush hour traffic, okay, you're affecting more than just that 1 lane. All of them are being affected. At capacity, for every minute traffic is affected, it takes 4 minutes for it to recover. That means once it's opened back up again, it takes 4 minutes. Think about it. An hour, roadway's closed for an hour. It's going to take 4 hours for it to get back to normal. That accident on 95 that I've referred to, that's why I said I guarantee you that the traffic is still going to be affected on that by this afternoon's rush hour. It's just not going to clear up. It was closed for several hours. And because of it happening at rush hour, it's going to affect it for a long time. That's what traffic flow kind of looks like. Okay, that's how fast it can back up the instant in the left lane. You see them bumping into each other, running into each other as they're pulling up behind it. Cars jumping lanes, changing lanes, pull around to go around, causing this lane to slow down. Not everybody drives a Ferrari. Okay, not everybody can go from 0 to the speed limit in 2 seconds. Okay, so that catch-up speed takes a while. That's what safe quick clearance is. We've talked about that. Just make sure that you have it on your mind that you don't just want to get there and dilly-dally. Hit that one, Mike. You can tell that this is not Maryland. Police officer goes out there, stops traffic. The other police officer is going to go and push that vehicle up out of the way. Watch this. This is how you know it's not Maryland. He just left them. He got in his car. They haven't moved. You could tell it's not Maryland. Okay, those cars would have run him over, trying to get back over, okay? But as soon as you're out of the lane, oh, my lane's open, I can go now, right? Okay? They waited for him to be out of the way. Our move over law, okay, it's really important for us. We all know about it. Tow trucks started October 1st. The Clear the Road policy, it was just renewed in August by the administrator for state highways and the superintendent of the Maryland State Police. Okay, Garrett saying, yeah, we're on board with this. We want to get the roads clear as soon as possible and as safe as possible.
Basically just a policy between the state police and the state highway administration that says we will do whatever it takes to clear the roadway. We're not necessarily concerned with property. We have the right to push, pull, drag, tug, remove anything out of the travel portion of the roadway to increase traffic. You may see a memorandum of understanding coming your way between the State Highway Administration Chart Program and your agency. It's basically an understanding that, hey, look, your agency does not require to provide any funding, any personnel, any other type of monetary value to this program, but you are agreeing to commit to the traffic incident management principles that were being set forth. You're agreeing to train your personnel and things like that. So you may see that coming your way. It's based on the Clear the Road policy.
That's where this all comes from, about people do have to move their cars. If it's a fender bender, if it's a minor accident, they have, under law, under 2103, they have to move it. Okay? Property damage accidents where the vehicles can be driven out of the road. Light, we'd like to get people, we talk about light discipline in the course. Okay? And the second thing I want you to take away from this is to wear the vest. When you're around traffic, people are blind. They need everything, the brightest things that you can put on. If you could walk around with a little light flashing on your hat just to get their attention, it would probably be a good idea, because people just don't pay attention. But wear the vests when you're out there.
We have time for this?
This actually just shows a fire and about that you can't just plan on taking one lane. When the car when you do have a gas tank that ruptures and it goes across the highway, it's going to take more than that one lane. Ooh, ouch. We want to work as partners with everybody. Okay? Between us, the Federal Highway Administration and all, we will provide the material, the instructors, and everything to get this training out to you. Okay? Just covered that. There's 3 dates that we have the 4-hour course coming up. Okay? If you want to schedule training for your agency, the one paper that you have has my contact information. Send me an email, give me a call, whatever it takes to make it happen. We can do it.